Hey, everybody. Oh, my goodness. Welcome to another episode of the Dr. Kiki Ramsey Show. And listen, today's show is going to be so interesting, enlightening. It's going to be deep, especially with my guests that I have here today. You all do not want to miss it. We're going to really be talking about how to rediscover your true self. And if you are like me, this has been a topic that I used to struggle with over the years. And so today you get a chance to talk to an expert who knows just how to help you do that. Okay, y'all, right after this. Daniel Olexa.
Hello, Dr. Kiki. So great to see you.
You too. Welcome to the show.
Thank you. It's great to be here.
And so we can tell people how we met. We actually met at an ICF, which is an International Coaching Federation, Georgia conference. In person. We met there in person, which was so kind of cool because I had already reached out to you because we were featured on an article together prior to that. Oh my God. Like
and
it was
and then it turns out we were like 1 degree of separation away from each other because we both know a common person who was like, "Hey, do you know so and so?" Like, no, but I'm about to meet her. And then we were just featured in this article together. It's like the universe just comes together.
It did. And I always believe that, things that are meant to be and people who are meant to connect, we connect. And so look at us. Here we are now. So I am so excited that you are here, my friend. And we're going to really be talking about a topic I think that is so necessary for us to really be having that conversation about. So, and that's really talking about rediscovering your true self. But before we dive in, I want you to share with the Kiki Ram fam a little bit about yourself.
Well, my name obviously is Daniel Olexa. I'm the founder of Transcendent Living. And my focus, my calling to the world and the work that I do is to help individuals who are feeling burned out, feeling like they're living really small, that small life, to really rediscover their authentic self, which is our topic today, where really the limits come off. And that's what and live above what everybody else says is normal, which is the definition of transcendent. There's these rules, and then there's what's outside of the rules, and that's where things open up.
I love that. And so many, just from, being a coach, I just know that so many of us need that in our lives and don't necessarily even know where to start. So share with us your biggest superpower.
My superpower is actually associated to that guy right there, because that is my superhero self, that sees the light in other people that they might not see fully or sense fully. And I have an ability to see patterns. I don't know where it came from. One of my bosses 30 years ago, I hate to say it's been that long, said to me, "You just naturally see patterns and you understand how things work." And just a few years ago, I was sharing that with one of the coaches that I worked with. And he said to me, "There's a word for that." Like, there is? I didn't know that. Like, yeah, you see things and hear things that other people don't sense. And that's magic. Oh, yeah. And then we bring those things forward. So that my superpower is magic, I guess.
I love that. And share with, our listeners what you were pointing to. So for those ones who can't see it.
Yeah, it's that picture right there. I unfortunately can't zoom in, but about 4 years ago, I was in a coaching intensive, and Rich Litvin, who's a coach's coach, very big thought leader in the industry, when he closed out the intensive, he was talking about, he has a love of comic books and superheroes, as do I. And he's like, "What if you had a superpower? What would your superpower be, and what would your code name be?" And I knew it like that. Like, The superpower is being able to see light. And then the name that came to me intuitively was Fresnel, which is the lens that's on a lighthouse that is just a series of concentric rings that takes that relatively dull lamp, even though it's still super bright,
Mhm.
of a lighthouse and intensifies it through those rings so that it can be seen miles away out in the ocean. I realized that that's my superpower, is helping other people intensify their light.
I love that. I love it because, oh boy, I mean, when the world is so dark, we absolutely need the light, right? And if you can help people find that in themselves, then I think hands down, that's just something the world needs. So I love that. If you are joining us live today, I'd love to hear from you. You can drop your name in the chat and where you are tuning in from, as we get into this conversation about rediscovering your true self, right? So we named it Rediscovering Your True Self, but I really want to know, what does discovering your true self actually even really mean? I mean, I know I do a lot of purpose work, and I help people along those lines, but I think some people feel like they ain't never discovered themselves, right? So rediscover
Mhm.
might be even a harder task. So take us into it a little bit.
So I think for me and my journey is I forgot who I was.
Mm,
And I find a lot of people, the clients I talk to, and even just individuals I have conversation with, we start living by rules. We start living by other people's expectations, societal, cultural expectations, all these things that come in that from the outside that start telling us and dictating us who we should be, how we're supposed to show up, how we're supposed to act, what we're supposed to say and not say, blah, 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 blah. It's other people's stuff
yeah.
that has been this agreed upon compact. Um, the the sons of Don Miguel Ruiz, who wrote the Four Agreements, and then his one son wrote the fifth. When they write about this and talk about Toltec wisdom, they use the word domestication,
Mm,
and it hits me more in that way of, we become domesticated to a set of rules that we stop questioning, and when that shell gets put on us, we forget who we are, living from the outside, from the inside out,
yeah.
and suddenly the shell becomes us. And another way to talk about it is the ego self, the learned self versus the authentic self. And the
Mhm.
authentic self is the one that feels frustrated and bound and constricted by the rules and says there's something more here. But the ego self gets really loud because that's the one we experience in life 99% of the time.
Yeah, we absolutely do. I be like, even myself, and I'm like, am I showing up, or is this, the representative of me showing up in this moment? But I think you also have to be self aware in order to do that and ask yourself those questions. And so, what inspired you to start along this journey? Because of course, you're a coach. You're an amazing coach. You are a master certified coach with the International Coaching Federation. Whoop whoop to all the MCCs out there. And
4% club, yes.
yes, exactly. I know, right? It's like 4% of us, like
Mhm.
who are MCCs. And for those of you who are listening, what an MCC is, it's a master certified coach through the International Coaching Federation, which is pretty much the largest governing body of coaches, life coaches, leadership coaches, workplace coaches. And it takes a lot of hours of coaching to become an MCC, more than 2,500 hours to be exact, to become an MCC. So that's no small feat, right? But so many of us, we have so many different array of things that we focus on. Tell me your backstory of why you decided to shepherd people to the light, because there's so many things that you could have been doing with your coaching.
So going way, way back, there's always been a part of me that was the part that heard and saw those things. When I was 4 or 5 years old, I would hear people calling my name who weren't there.
Mhm.
I grew up in I swear that house was haunted, but I would hear it. And that was part of the conversation I had with that coach a couple years ago about magic. And so I've always had this gift that came and went. So because I would shut it down, but I moved into really design initially. So my work was about visual problem solving. And about 12 years ago at this point, I had done all the things that society and family said I should do to be happy. I was married, had the house, had the 2 dogs, did everything by the rules, had the title, had the job, all of it. And I was freaking miserable.
Wow.
And I sat back and looked like, what's going on? I could feel something inside of me saying, life can be better. Life
Mm.
should be better. But if you asked me what better meant, I couldn't tell you in that moment. I just knew there was this discord, this lack of harmony inside of me. And I hit a wall that resulted in me leaving that company abruptly, and also going through a divorce in my first marriage. And through all of that existential crisis of asking myself, who am I and why is my life like this? I had gotten connected to a hypnotherapist in Kansas City where I was living at the time. And we did some work to help me get my mojo back, like refine my confidence after all this external stuff had knocked me down. And I think that's what drew me into it initially. And then by being able to tune back into some universal signals and paying attention to signs from the universe, when my then girlfriend, now current wife, and I were moving from Kansas City down to Florida, I had to reinvent myself. At that point, I'm 47, like going through a reinvention of like, what do I do? Because even if I wasn't burned out in my old industry, it didn't exist where we were going. And said, I'm kind of thinking hypnotherapy. She said, look, see what's out there. We were moving to Naples, which is relatively tiny town.
Mm-hmm.
Looking online for training. There's at the time one school in Florida teaching a state certified program, 500 hours long, with campuses in all the major cities, Tampa, Orlando, Miami, and Naples. And it was like, shut up and take my money. I know where I'm going. This is the sign. Just go.
Exactly. Oh, wow.
And that's what opened it all up, is tuning back into those signals that were always there, but I wasn't paying attention up to that point.
I love this. And I don't know a lot about hypnotherapy, but I want to learn, and I want us to have, some conversations as well. But we do have Stephen, who is from Colombia, but joining us in Colorado. He has a question. In a long personal process of connecting with my true self, I found that pushing away from my ego self also brought my drive of doing, of action. Thoughts on how to balance true self with keeping a good drive and action motivated. So like he wants to know, like, how do you actually balance your true self, but also still continue your drive and being able to take action in your life?
Yeah, so this becomes an interesting part of the conversation, because when we start talking about the ego self and the true self, we start treating them like 2 different people, and they're not. They are the same. It's a matter of which one's driving the car and which one's riding shotgun. And what tends to happen in life is, rather than the true self and the deeper desire being the one in the driver's seat than the ego riding along, the ego jumps over and says, we're going this way because this is what we've been told to do. As the shift takes place in the energy, it's important to recognize they are not 2 separate aspects of us, but allowing the authentic self to come forward and work with the ego self, because the ego self is the one that's here in 3-dimensional reality, interacting with the world, interacting with others, is the goal-driven, who sets the markers, where the authentic self is the one that has the passion and the drive. And when they come together and work together, and the ego might be more of a navigator, calling out potholes and calling out possible turns, versus we're going this way, that's when we can get both energies in alignment. It's, in a weird, I shouldn't say it's a weird way. When the 2 come together and integrate, it's also very similar to when we integrate our shadow, even though the ego is not shadow. that we tend to have this side of ourselves that we disavow, like when we blow up or whatever. Like, that's
Mhm.
not me. But in the work of Debbie Ford, if we're disavowing that powerful side of ourselves, we are not experiencing ourselves as a whole person.
Mhm.
When we integrate the shadow and really embrace its power and listen to its perspective, now again, all limits are off because we're becoming whole in how we present ourselves. So it's a both and of letting the two sit
Mm.
together, because each has a power the other doesn't have. And when they combine that, now it's just so much more.
I love that. So it's not a matter of like, oh, putting the ego self to the side and making sure the authentic self is the person that shows up because you're one. It's a matter of saying, hey, how do you guys work in harmony together? Because you both have strengths and powers, but you're still one being.
Mm.
And which one drives the bus down the
And
street?
the other thing that kind of comes forward in this right now is the idea that the authentic self is the one that's going to be connected. So in the
Mm.
hypnotherapy work, I do a lot of it bases into transpersonal work, which is the idea that we are all God or the universe or source, whichever word you want to put on the ultimate
Mhm.
all-knowing. We are that experiencing incarnation. So we are that, we are divine. But when our ego forgets that, so
Mhm.
as we reconnect to it, the authentic self that's connected is the one that can create the really big ideas or tap into them. When then it comes to the practicality of how do I do it, that's where the ego self that's here in the world is the one that can start taking the steps and outlining process.
I love that. Okay, so listen, can you explain a little bit more about the hypnotherapy? Because you said that you know, you were drawn to it, you went to school for it. How does it help in this sense? Like, how does it even work? Because I'm just not familiar, but I am so interested, and I'm sure our listeners are as well.
Sure. So what hypnotherapy does is allows us to tap into the wisdom of our subconscious mind, which is recording everything in our life. It's remembering things we don't even remember, but we can tap into those memories that might be creating a limiting story. Um, it it has knowledge and wisdom that we in our conscious mind do not. I've heard it described in so many different ways that the power of the subconscious mind is like walking into a theater playing 5,000 movies. Conscious mind can only pay attention to one, but there's these 5,000 films going on.
Mm.
When we in really all hypnosis is deep relaxation. And what we do is get out of the churn of the conscious mind and quiet it.
Mm.
And when we do, we open up direct conversation with the subconscious so these deeper things can come forward and start to open up that wisdom, maybe release some negative emotions, maybe address some negative memories that have created a story of how we're allowed to show up because of something that maybe happened in our childhood because of how we defined it as a 5 or a 7-year old. But as an adult, we would define it much differently. And then that takes those limitations off. So, what hypnotherapy does is get to the root much faster than conscious conversation, and then
Mm.
also helps to rewrite the script. So we're just like a computer. We have a script that's running
Mhm.
underneath telling us how we're allowed to show up even though we might not know it consciously. When that limiting script is now brought forward of, oh, this is the story I've been living my life by, we can then rewrite it and re-impress it with the powerful positive story of ultimate connection, if that's what we want, or however the client wants to define it, so that they can then live that empowered life for their rather than living by a script they never questioned.
Oh my God. Why is everybody not doing this? Because I know.
I'll
Go
tell you
ahead.
why.
Okay.
Movies and TV shows and stage shows where it looks like the hypnotherapist is doing some magical thing and you're out of control and you don't
Mm.
remember any of it. And it's all a bunch of, and I'll be family friendly here, it's all a crock of
Mhm. Baloney.
the the individual in that relaxed state is fully conscious, fully
Mm,
aware of everything that's going on in the moment. And if they're in control, like if something were to come up, it's not truth serum. If there's something they want to withhold, they don't feel comfortable sharing with the practitioner, they won't. They'll
mm,
filter it still. The the idea with it is anyone pursuing it, one, they are in total control. I want to say that completely.
okay.
But there's the work gets done in rapport, just the same as coaching gets done. The
Yeah.
client who doesn't feel safe, doesn't feel secure is not going to open up.
Mm.
The safer and more secure and more trusting the client is in the practitioner, the deeper they're going to be willing to open up and do that deeper dive in discovery.
I love that. And I do think that more people, I mean, I think media messes so much stuff up. Like, I mean, media just gets so much stuff wrong. Um, and it keeps, so many deserving people from really like figuring out who they really are, figuring out their life's purpose, all of those things. Why do you think that, so many people have problems really understanding who they truly are, or have problems just getting lost in the sauce and ending up at a place where they're like, I hate life. It sucks.
My gut feeling, because this is kind of where I was, so I can only draw from my own experience and from conversations I've had with others, that once we get lost in that sauce, we're surrounded by other people who are also lost in it. So there's a whole lot of confirmation bias that goes on of, you know what, life really sucks. You know what, it does. Yes. You hate that job. Well, you know what, just put your head down, go to it. And someday, some magical day, you'll get to retire.
Mm,
So we just hear everybody else talking the same crap. And we get this expectation that, oh, this is all there is. And we
mm.
accept it.
That that's what I hate, because I mean, I know that I felt I felt the same way you felt as well. Like, I'm doing all the right things, because so many of us feel like we've done all the right things, but we end up a place, still called unhappiness, right? And but I think the thing about me is that I refuse to give up, because I was like, this does suck, but this do I want to do I want to stay here? Right? The pain, right? The pain of staying here is greater than the pain of me moving forward. But that is not everybody's story, right?
Mhm.
And so if somebody is stuck, right, in this place of like, number one, I don't know who I am. Life sucks. My job sucks. My family, what I'm saying? Just all the things are not clicking on all cylinders. What is the first step towards them finding their true self, would you say, that they need to do?
The first thing is to just stop entirely, stop
Mm,
spinning.
mm,
Because if we're in that spin, or the tornado of external events has us questioning, it's really difficult to take a solid step forward when we're off balance. So the first thing I say is just come to a pause. Give yourself permission to pause and really take stock of what's going on around. Become a little bit of an observer. And then the next thing, and particularly for anyone who begins outreach,
mm,
so let's say they call you or they call me, like, life sucks. I don't know what to do next. I don't even know how to move forward. If we think about someone who has truly accepted that there is nothing more to life and it just is this miserable experience and that's the way it is until we go to the next thing, they're not going to be reaching out.
mm,
They've
mm.
accepted it.
Yeah.
Person who picks up the phone, starts even looking online of
Mm,
like, how, can it be better? There is something in them that is saying there is something different, even though they can't define it yet. There's something innate within their being that is saying, hey, it's time to start looking for something else. It's time to start looking for that bigger picture. Might be like the flicker of a birthday candle flame in their core that's
mm,
part of their identity, saying, hey, over here, there's a light in this darkness if you start paying attention to it. And even if like we wind up in a conversation and they're still in that low energy, I'll ask, which part of you made that call today? which part of you came to this Zoom room? Because if you truly believed life sucks and there's nothing better, you wouldn't have reached out. And that's when we start fanning that flame to get it to be a supernova.
So do you think that, because I know, like you said, slow down, right? Does that depend on the person in terms of the timing of that, or how long we sit back in that? Because I remember when I was going through all my stuff and just really trying to figure out my life's purpose and who I really was in life and what I was called to do. I did have to take a step back, and I felt like my step back was a slowing down of probably a couple of months per se, where I just really was with myself, because I really think that a lot of times we don't know ourselves because we haven't done that slow down to even know what we want. I mean, we don't even, we can't slow down enough to know that I want this out of life. Because what I've realized from like some of the work I've done is that we have that chatter, like you talked about earlier, going on in our head. And it's from other people. It's from people who, say they love us and stuff like that, and they want the best for us, but they don't know us no more than we know ourselves.
And a side aspect to that is they only knew what they knew.
Yeah.
So, like, I think about my parents, who their formative years were during the Depression. In their youth, in their first 5 years, they experienced lack that has not been seen in this country since. Yet, when I was born in 66, and in my formative years in the late 60s, early 70s, they're still preaching that same lack of money, all of it, when there's abundance 30, 40 years later that is very different. They weren't aligned to that.
Yep.
They were aligned to struggle and strife. And all those stories of be careful with money, do this, and all this kind of hoarding mentality of you never know what's going to happen. They weren't. It took me 50 years to figure this out. It wasn't that they were trying to diminish me or make me live smaller. They just wanted, they were coming from a loving place of wanting me to be safe.
Yeah.
And there's a recognition in that of, it's easy to point fingers at people and blame them. But when we look back at what were their true intentions, they just wanted us to be safe, and all they knew is all they knew. And that opens up forgiveness and other things that helps raise our vibration to release and stop dragging stuff with us that's not ours to carry.
Ooh, you can say that again. Yeah. It was just so funny. I've been talking recently to a couple of clients about just the abundant mindset and how I grew up in poverty. Thus, I grew up with the poverty mindset. And it took me into adulthood to try to overcome some of the programming that has been bestowed upon me by, my mom, family, and stuff like that. Stuff like, money don't grow on trees and all that kind of stuff. But deep down inside, I always knew I was going to be rich. Like, but that's not what, like, my brain, my psyche would tell me and everything like that. And so for someone who is in this process, they're stuck, they do know that they were meant for so much more. They really, really, really do want to discover who they really are, what their life's purpose is at. So we're saying that, first of all, they need to just kind of get comfortable and just stop spinning. Second, if they're in the state where they do that and they're willing to reach out, then is that the next step, is for them to actually reach out? Because can we do this by ourselves?
There's parts of it that can be. And then I think there's parts where it's really helpful to have someone looking from the outside. As one of my mentors said to me years ago, I had one of those epiphany moments of like, I can't believe I didn't see that. And his response was, they're called blind spots for a reason, and that's why you have me.
Ooh.
And there we go.
I love that. Yeah, no, I think I definitely think we all have blind spots. We all have unconscious biases as well, right? That we hold on to. So, what are the parts that right now, as we head downhill with this,
Mhm.
that we can do by ourselves, that'll get us a little ways down the road?
The first one, I think, is one to create that pause space, whatever it is, on a daily basis, and begin a ritual of practice of whether it's meditation or just silent time in the morning to connect with self. Um, and start asking the questions of what, here's what's coming to me. Here's the tap I'm getting. When we're in so familiar with what we don't want, when that becomes the overriding thing, but we start to notice this isn't what I want, maybe the first thing is to list out what are those things we're experiencing as the negative. Put them
Mm,
on paper.
mm.
And then on the next column, what's the opposite? If you can't say life is miserable, but I want it to be this, we don't know what the this is yet. Maybe the first breakdown is what is it that we're defining as miserable? And then easiest thing is what's the opposite of it? And start opening up that side on a really easy baby step. And then if as you look down this list, if those were the words that defined your life, what would it be like? Now we have somewhere to go.
Oh, I love that because first of all, I love the opposite, exercise, because I think sometimes we don't have the words, or we don't have the forethought to say, this is how exactly I want my life to be, and it should be like this, and should like, we just don't have that. But we know that we don't want it to be like this, right? So I think journaling and really trying to, figure those things out. I think you said something that I love, that's important, and that I started doing, and it actually changed my life. You said get up in the morning. You didn't say get up at night. You didn't say stay up at night, and I'm wondering if there's something to that, because I am part of the 4 and 5 a.m. club. It just depends on what I have going on in the day, whether I get up at 4 or whether I get up at 5. But I found that time to be glorious. It is so, it's, there's something about getting up when the world is still sleeping and being able to have that time where I don't have to be on, because people are not expecting me to answer emails at 4 o'clock in the morning or 5 o'clock in the morning. They're not expecting that. I'm not expected to be mom. I'm not expected to be wifey. I'm just me doing me. And so I'll get up, I'll read the Bible. I will pray. I'll read something that's educational or something that's not educational, just because I like leisure as well in my life. I may journal. But is there something to that when we're actually trying to rediscover ourselves? Is there something to it in the sense of like getting up in the morning versus like maybe doing this thing at night?
Yeah, I think the one thing I'll before I go into the what it's about, maybe for the as a counterpoint of those who work a night shift, the start of your day, so to speak, would be in the evening. So it's about when we first wake up to begin whatever our daytime experience
Mhm.
or our conscious experiences, of starting it with intention and starting it with coming back to self rather than I've got to take care of everybody else's stuff, which is how we tend to live. And taking that time for our refueling re-energizes our batteries, fills our cup, and I think also sets the day with intention,
Mm.
because we increase our energy by taking care of self, and it changes how we show up in the world versus get up, got to run, got to do this, got to do that, got to take care of all these other things, and we never refuel. Or if we
Yeah,
do, it's when we're really tapped out at night, and then we're going to sleep still tapped out, hopefully recharge a little bit. But that intentional filling of the battery in the morning is so important.
I love that. I love that. Oh my God, this conversation has been so good, so enlightening. I hope you all have gotten so much out of this. And so, as we begin to close out, I would love to know just one message or one insight that you'd like the Dr. Kiki Ram fam to take away from this conversation that we've had today?
Yeah, it goes back to the light. And obviously, there is a lot of darkness in the world right now, and I don't need to speak on it any more than that.
Mm-hmm.
We all know what I'm talking about. We all know the energy that's out there.
Yep.
It is outside of you. Do not allow it in. Candles burn in the darkness. If you allow it in, you diminish your light. Do not be distracted by it, because that's what it counts on. That's what all those people promoting it count on, is that you will be distracted from your power. Do not give it up.
Woo, my goodness. Y'all heard that. That was so good. So good. Well, listen, I am going to, heed your words. And I'm not going to let the darkness in, because Lord knows. Whew, goodness. Okay. But I would love for you to share with our fam what's going on with you in your world. How can people get in touch with you? Because I truly believe that if people are stuck, just having, this conversation with you, even potentially trying something that they might have not tried before, like hypnosis, may be the route. And even if you guys are unsure if that's the route or whatever, I say still give Daniel a call, because I'm fascinated with it, and I know that it can work. I've seen it from other people. So share with us what's going on with you, and then how people can get in touch with you.
Yeah, I am continuing on my journey to help others live fuller lives. I am also an ICF mentor coach with 100% track record. So if you're an ICF, if you are dedicated to this field of helping others find their light and are looking into the credentialing path, reach out. Easiest way to find me is through my website, transcendentliving.com, or send me an email at daniel@transcendentliving.com, and we will have the conversation. I come into all of those conversations with absolutely no attachment. I'm here to serve those who reach out to me. And what I've learned over the years is, just because someone comes to have a conversation with me, it's not always about them working with me. It's about handing them off to someone in my network whom they weren't aware of. And that's where the magic happens. So there's so many things happening, between corporate trainings that I've created to help empower corporate culture into more of a coaching collaborative style, to working individually with people. It's all there on the site, and I'm here to make that light burn brighter and diminish the
Yes.
darkness.
Oh, I love it. I love it. Thank you so much for being on the show and allowing your light to shine through to the family, because like you said, there's a lot of darkness going on right now, and being able to shine is something that I think we all want to be able to do. And some people just don't know where to start. So this is a great starting place for everybody. So thank you for being with me on the show today.
You're welcome. Thank you for the opportunity. It has been a wonderful pleasure.
Yay. Awesome, awesome, awesome. So also, family, if you are a woman and you truly want to learn how to dig into your purpose in life, you want to learn how to find a career, whether it's a professional career in a corporate space, or either your own business that lights you up, that allows you to go out there and share your gifts with the world, I invite you to join us in Thrive Society, which is my membership community. But I coach you every single month on how to really take your skills to the next level. So just go to drkiki.com and you can find all the information there. Other than that, you always know that you have the power to create your own happiness. So go out there, shed your light, and spread some joy. All right, now, till next time.